Oh yes, it is time for another TIL. Today I learned Amir's turn to present is this week, so I'm sorry this is going to be super boring. You probably just want to click another video. But with that said, Amir, tell me some things you learned.
Okay, we have a couple fun little ones for you. So, I just learned this. The government of Netherlands clarified that it is legal for driving instructors to offer lessons in return for sex, as long as the students are over the age of 18. Did you know about this?
No, that's not true.
Yep. The transport minister and other people in the parliament, they had to answer the question because someone asked the question. And they said, although undesirable, offering driving lessons with sex as payment is not illegal in the Netherlands. And the ministers further said, quote, it's not about offering sexual activities for remuneration, but offering a driving lesson. It is important that the initiative lies with the driving instructor and focuses on offering a driving lesson with the payment provided in sexual acts. When a sexual act is offered in lieu of financial payment, that is prostitution.
Oh, okay, so they would have to go into the contract with the understanding.
Yeah, you can offer
So you can't be like,
the
oh,
driving
no,
lesson for sex, but you can't offer sex for the driving lesson.
Oh, so wait. So the driving instructor has to be super transparent. Like, yeah, I'll teach you how to drive, but it's gonna be a blowj.
Yeah. It's
and then
from Belgium.
Okay,
I'm assuming
you're right. I mean, it's a little strange, but
yeah. And
as long as both parties are fully consenting.
The name for
and
it, what they call it, because it's been increasing in popularity.
It has been.
Yeah, it's called a ride for a ride.
Okay, but are these like really like these must be because my driving instructor, I remember him very well, was like easily pushing 60 and a weirdo, a great instructor, but like there was a reason why he was. You know, why he had spent like 40 years of his life just driving around with like bratty teenagers. He had incredible patience.
Wait, was your driving instructor in Belgium?
No, it was in the U.S. I learned to drive in Kentucky. Yeah, and he was a little bit of a strange character. And I certainly, if he had been like, well, like the price is, you know, a little blowj, I would have definitely asked for another instructor.
Okay, good.
Business would have been bad for him.
Yeah.
So I wonder. I have questions.
It's very foreign to me, but I don't know. As someone who grew up in Europe, do you remember attitudes regarding?
It's way more relaxed than it is in the U.S.
Like just can you give me an example?
Abstinence only is an American phenomenon. That's certainly not a thing.
Like how old were you and your friends when like you were start talking?
Sex ed started when we were 10 or 11.
Well, same here. Okay. I was in 5th grade when sex ed started.
Yeah, 5th grade.
Okay, interesting. Moving on. So in the late 1990s, Marvel, as we know it, like they were in a really bad state. They had declared bankruptcy in 1996, and they were really struggling. So they made an offer to Sony that we'll give you our entire roster of the Marvel, what's today the Marvel Cinematic Universe. We'll let you have the entire roster for $25 million. Sony said, no, we only want Spider-Man because we only think Spider-Man's gonna succeed. Yeah. Now, like looking back at it today, it's like, wow.
Well, that's why we got the Amazing Spider-Man, was it the Amazing Spider-Man with Andrew Garfield?
Yeah. And they're just
because Sony wanted to hold on to those properties.
Well,
but
even Spider-Man Homecoming was Sony as well.
Yeah.
And like that's kind of a little bit of the reason why there haven't been as many mashups between Spider-Man and the rest of the.
And Fantastic Four was also another attempt for, I'm not sure if it was Sony, but it was, I think it was 20th Century Fox. It was another.
Yeah, they got X-Men as well.
Yeah, they got X-Men for them to hold on to the property. And then we saw how that turned out. Once Marvel was able to crack the code of how to make a successful superhero movie, all the other studios are just sort of out of luck.
Yeah, it's interesting, like looking back like almost 20 years ago, how different the time was.
That.
You knew about this Sony thing?
I totally knew that.
Why?
Because it was a big controversy. Like whenever they come out with
you're low-key kind of a comic book nerd, aren't you?
A little bit.
Like you know about comics. Like I was surprised the amount you did know because you know more than I do.
I do, yeah, I do. I'm hesitant to say comic book nerd. I feel like that comes with like a certain weight and knowledge that you're meant to have. I wouldn't say that I have that, but I certainly have like read comics. I'm more of a DC fan myself. I've always loved Batman and Superman, which is not unique. Who doesn't?
No, I've never heard anyone liking those things, but you.
They're fringe characters. Maybe you've heard of them.
Yeah.
Bruce Wayne.
Okay, like let's change gears a little bit. So I read this very interesting article about the hidden history of homosexuality in the United States.
Yes!
And
Already on board with this one.
I urge people to go into it. It's very long and it goes into a lot of detail, and we can only talk about a few parts of it. But anyway, the gist of it is that America tries to teach people that before like the 1950s, let's say, like there was no homosexuality in America. It was like very Puritan, everything was normal, like these things didn't exist. Well, a lot of historians were like, no, that's just not true. We're gonna go deep dive into this and show like how much sexuality was a part of the United States and like why we got to the point where we think it doesn't even exist. So one part that stuck out to me in this whole thing was among Native American tribes, how homosexuality was treated, and it was actually treated very matter-of-factly. Like it was totally normal for them. If they realized like a boy or girl was gay from a young age, they allowed them to live comfortably, however life they wanted to, based on that. The really interesting part about this TIL that I wanted to talk about was about the town which was called Marymount. Have you ever heard of Marymount?
I think we played them in basketball. Where is this?
Okay, so Marymount is like, it's a common name, but in 1624, this comes at the heels of the Puritans coming to America.
Yeah.
This guy named Thomas Morton decided to found a town based on very different principles from what the Puritans were trying to do in an area near Boston called Quincy. And they named the town Marymount, which was a popular slang at the time for illicit forms of sex.
Well, I mean, you're
Marymount.
pretty merry when you're getting mounted.
Yeah, on top of that, in the middle of the town, they built an 80-foot penis tower.
As they should.
And it was a really interesting and free place to live for like the 5 years that it did exist.
Then what happened?
Then the Puritans invaded the town and killed.
I was also gonna say probably procreation was harder then before science and adoptions.
Yeah, but it was just super fascinating reading about these things that you will not find in history books anywhere.
Yeah.
But like for a while, these people lived very freely. They intermarried with Native Americans. Sexuality wasn't like held to like some Puritan standard that like you had to be heteronormative to live there. So I don't know. I wanted to share that.
No,
I thought it was really interesting.
I didn't know that. I do think that Marymount, so I went to school for 1 year at Smith College, which is in Massachusetts, and I do think, and Darren's in the studio today, I do think we played them in basketball. Marymount does sound familiar, and I'm sure there were lesbians that attended. But I didn't know that, and queer history in general, you don't really hear about it unless you go looking for it, which I think is unfortunate, and it's something that I think is really important to every queer individual or wherever you are in your sexual identity or whatever, just to learn about and educate yourself on, because there are people that came before us that paved the way for us to have the freedoms that we have right now, and still there's so much more that has yet to be done, especially coming up on Pride Month, you know, which is in June. We're in May right now and we're taping this. It's so important to just educate yourselves.
People don't even know about like recent history, like going as close to like Stonewall.
Of course, that's a great example where I'm shocked by how many people I know in the LGBT plus community that are unaware of the details surrounding Stonewall and just who was there, who, you know, just how it all went down. And I think it's important to educate yourself, and I'm happy that you found that article. I hope that I'll post that in the comments below to link it so you guys can check it out, because that is really interesting.
No, you won't.
Yes, I will.